Now, yesterday evening, I was really excited. I was desperately looking forward to my supper. And that supper involved cutting, for the first time, some asparagus spears that I started from seed 3 years ago. And so this year is the first time to harvest. But I came across something that stopped me from doing it because I had to act immediately. So the next part of this video is all about what happened yesterday evening, what I did about it. I recorded it as and when I was, involved in the situation. So it's not a polished video by any means. There's a bit of editing, but other than that, the idea is I wanted to capture what was happening at the time so I could show you guys and you could then be one step ahead of the game should it happen to you. Now, bear in mind, please, that this wasn't just affecting my asparagus. I had the same issue in the front garden. So let's take a look at this video and then we'll come back and I'm going to tell you what I've done. So let's go. So this is the asparagus bed. Look at the thickness of the stems of these guys here. And I started this bed from seed 3 years ago. So now it's ready to be harvested, as you can see from this. And I've got a lot of good quality growth. But I've also got a problem. I've just come out here to harvest some of these spears. And I've discovered that I've got these guys all over the tips. Don't know if you can make that out. We can get a look at this one a bit better. So let's come around here. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it's given me the opportunity to test my new insecticidal soap recipe. And so what I'm going to do, once I've worked out so what I'm going to do is just spray all the tips with this. As I'm doing it, these little creatures are actually falling straight off. So they're not very keen on whatever they're getting. So I'm going to leave this for a couple of hours and we'll come back and see. Now this is a pretty, I've had to make this up quickly because I obviously didn't want them on here. I haven't had a chance to actually Google it. I've used my app. So they are falling off. They're not keen. So we'll see if it works. I've also got some white fly on the roses in the front. So we'll pop round there and we'll apply the same. Now if we look closely we can see some white fly on these roses here. No aphid, no green fly as such or aphids, but we've got a lot of white fly on this. So again, with this new spray, let's give it a quick once over. Check the next one. Well, you know what? Yeah, they're all good at it. So we'll just give it all a quick, not going to take very long. And then we're going to come back to this in a few hours time just to see how effective this is. And if it is effective, I'll tell you what the recipe is. So there we go. They've all had, got to say, This secret spray does smell quite fragrant. So these 3 rose bushes have been sprayed, as has the asparagus. So we'll give it, like I say, a couple of hours, and we'll come back and we'll have a look and see how effective this is. In the meantime, I'm going to Google that bug on my asparagus. I was looking forward to cutting some of that for my tea tonight. Never mind. Well, he seems to be moving around a little bit, but he's struggling. He fell off one of the spears, and he's not a very happy chappy. And these guys here have also fallen to the floor. And we've got a few who have just stopped moving altogether, but stayed on the stem. The others, they've all gone. Can't see any on the floor. If you can, you might be able to pick out these orange dots. They've definitely stopped moving. They're not going anywhere. And this is 5 minutes after the application, and again on the base of that one it's the same thing, and on the tip of this one here, stop moving. That's quite insane. That's very fast. You've still got a couple moving about, and if you look down here, you've got a baby grasshopper that hasn't been affected by this application. He looks quite happy. But yeah, this looks like it's worked. See again there. Camera's not focusing in on it very well. It's a shame. I'm sorry about that, but that's interesting. But they've gone quite fast. So I need to keep my eye on that. And we'll come back again tomorrow morning and see what we've got. Let's go and have a look at those roses again. It's interesting. Okay, back on the roses. And if you look carefully, I hope you can pick out these little brown dots that I've got on the stem there. Can you see those? And this is covered with it. So again, using that same spray that I've used just now on the asparagus, I'm looking to see what kind of life I've got on these guys. I can't see any moving, can you? Doesn't look like they are. There's a few kicking around. But the thing is with aphids, they're not like those beetles we've just been looking at. They just congregate on here. Normally you will see ants harvesting the honeydew from the aphids themselves, you know, like we milk cows. But there's no ant activity here. I think these guys have just suddenly appeared and creating havoc. That looks like it's worked, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until the morning when we can have a proper check, and then we'll decide whether this spray works. And if it does, I might tell you what the recipe is. But I was really looking forward to some asparagus for my tea tonight. Never mind, maybe tomorrow. Let's find out how we get on in the morning. So it's the morning after, the evening before. So we need to go and check how well my spraying activities actually were in the end. We're going to walk up. As we're doing that, down, see all these dandelions here? I'm quite happy to leave these guys because those seed heads are a great food source for the huge number of goldfinches we have here. Anyway, I'm doing it like this because I want you to see it as I see it for the first time this morning. So there's the bed. Let's get in there. You can look at the sunrise as I open the gate. Okay, let's take a look. I'm quite nervous. Okay, I've got some more here. Now, I don't know whether or not they are alive because I've just got my finger quite close to them. So, okay, got a couple there. Let's come across to here. I have got some more on there. But certainly not as prolific as they were yesterday. There's another one there, but I don't know whether, yeah, he's alive too. But this was covered, so I've got a couple there. So I'll give it another application. And now what we'll do is we'll go and look at the roses. So for me, I'm saying that's a success. But we'll go and look at the roses. So obviously I want to keep my eye on this today. Yeah, I've got a couple on there. Look what we've got behind the trellis on the roses. I'll get as close as I can to this guy. Can you make him out there? Look. One of the many lizards that we see here. What a specimen that is. Look at that. Looking pretty happy. Anyway, we'll leave him. We've come to check the roses. Okay. Very hard to show you on the camera, but all of these stems are covered in brown aphids, but they're not alive. But you may be wondering why I've got brown aphids. Well, it's to do with what I used last night. And that's a great example there. Look, if you can see, there's no movement at all. So this spray has worked very well on these roses. I've got no more coming back. Yeah, so I can be confident that that's done its job. This rose needs to be tied in a bit more now. Growing nice, and I've got some buds. But again, there's no aphid activity on these, so the spray definitely worked on there. There's the bottle I used last night, ready for action. Now I just check these hibiscus as well. So we'll go down this way. Now when you've got black fly, and if you choose to spray them, they don't fall off, they just stay where they are. Here's a good case in point. But yesterday, that was a lot blacker than today. And again, there's no activity on this. And if we walk across, I'm going to try and do this without falling. nearly a trip. Again, this one here, you see, certainly looking a lot better than it did yesterday, and even this one as well. Now it's interesting because when you look at that hibiscus and this one, there's a lot more leaf on these two than this one here. So maybe this one was more affected than the others, but there's definitely no signs of activity there. In actual fact, I've got a bit of collateral damage. If you look down through the middle of that branch there, you might be able to pick out. Let's get that across a little bit. Let's get in there. There's a ladybird there, which obviously I don't want to do, but I don't have much choice and things like that. You do get a bit of collateral damage, but there's one down there that seems to be okay. So overall, it's worked. This one's looking absolutely fine. So having a general look around, yeah, the spray's worked on the roses and on these hibiscus plants here. Success rate on those beetles on the asparagus, more investigation is needed. So we'll do that in a second, and we'll report back. But yeah, certainly on the roses, certainly the hibiscus, that spray has worked. So now we'll talk a bit more about the spray and what's in it. So there we are. That's what happened. Nice sunny morning now, as you've just seen. I've had some success, and on the roses and the hibiscus, I'm very happy with that. I was initially quite concerned when I saw that infestation yesterday evening, and it spoilt my tea or supper, depending on where you are in the world. But it isn't all doom and gloom. But it did give me another opportunity to turn a situation like that back to my advantage. And it's basically, it's what's in this. Now, I came across this theory based on an experience I had a couple of years ago when we first came here, and I planted potatoes up in the top corner of the plot when I first got started, and then it got completely devastated by Colorado beetle or potato beetle, and the only way for me to control it was to either go and buy a chemical spray or just let it do its thing. And I let it do its thing, and I just, I didn't have a crop. And it's a big problem around here. And someone suggested that what I should do is perhaps apply a spray of cola. And I was like, okay, seemed a bit odd to me. I didn't use Coke or Coca-Cola or any other brand, any cola brand last night. I used something else. But anyway, it led me to do a bit of research on it. And I came across a product that we all have in our kitchens. And that's what's made me do a bit more research and then come up with this particular recipe. Now, I'm about to tell you what that recipe is, but the reason why it was such a panic last night was because I didn't have any of this made up. And when you learn what those ingredients are in a second, you'll see why you wouldn't have it pre-made necessarily. But there are things you can do to have the stuff available to make it up. And so I had to make some really quickly last night. So that's probably why there's a bit of a panic in the video itself as to what was going on. Anyhow, let's get into it. So the first one is water. And in this mix that I made yesterday, I put in 2 litres of water. And I also added to that a dessert spoon full of hand soap. Now, I have another video on the channel about how to make an insecticidal soap, which is what this is. But it uses bicarbonate of soda, or baking soda, not baking powder. And it uses water, and it uses hand soap. And the reason why you use hand soap and not dish soap, like a lot of people say, is because dish soap contains things like hydrogen peroxide. That's why you want to be wearing rubber gloves when you're doing the washing up or your dishes, because it affects the skin. Whereas hand soap, an organic hand soap like Cassil, is perfect. There's no chemicals in that, and you can use it. So, and the reason for having the soap in with the water is because it acts like a glue. When it hits the insect, it will stick on the insect, and then allow that spray's other ingredient to do its magic. And the other ingredient is coffee. How about that? Who'd have thought? Now, there are a number of plants in the big wide world that produce caffeine as a way of being an insect repellent. You know, keeps the pests away. And with that theory in mind, and going back to that conversation I had with the person about using cola on my potatoes, there was the link for me, the caffeine in the cola, and this theory that plants can produce caffeine to repel pests. So I worked out my measurements, and basically what I did was 2 litres of water, dessert spoon of soap, mix the two together, get it nice and dissolved and mixed in, and then I added 200 ml of caffeine. And I went a bit mad because we don't use instant coffee here. We use freshly brewed on a percolator on the stove, and that came in at 200 ml by the time I threw that in there. I would imagine it was pretty strong at the time, way more than I needed, and I would say that now you only need 100 ml. So the recipe is 2 litres of water, 100 ml of coffee, and that dessert spoonful of water. Now the ideal situation would be is not to necessarily use freshly brewed coffee, but what you can do is you can save up the coffee grounds. Now we all know it's good for the compost. Some people think that it's too acidic if you put too much on the soil directly. Possibly, but spraying this onto your plants isn't going to increase the soil pH to make it an acidic level. It's not going to happen because once this hits the insect and the insects die off, it evaporates. It's not going to go back into the soil, so you shouldn't have an issue with that. So I'm not worried about that. But what you can do with the coffee grounds is you can collect some, and then all you got to do is pop it into a jar or a container, fill it up with water, and let it steep. And if you let it steep for 30 minutes to an hour, you're going to have enough caffeine out of that spent coffee grounds to be able to use in this particular spray. So what I will be doing from now on is making sure I've got a batch constantly steeping, have it in the office, which is behind you over there, shed, and then when I need to, I can mix them up and use it. I'm pretty sure that if I had fresh coffee in a jar, it's going to go off. I mean, it's going to happen, isn't it? So I'm better off just having it steeping somewhere, and then I can just take some, add it to my spray bottle like I've got here, with the soap, with the water, and off I go. Back to it though. Yeah, okay, maybe not a 100% success rate on the beetles up there. It certainly killed them. We saw that in the video. And as regards to the aphids on the roses, definitely a result in that regard. So I'm very happy with that. So now we've got 2 different ways of using an insecticidal soap that are both organic to control the aphids that we have in the garden and perhaps keep down some of the beetle infestations. But before you do anything else, it's always good to keep checking your plants to make sure, because yesterday morning none of these guys were around, and then suddenly there they were yesterday evening. So in the space of a few hours they're in. So it's always good to keep your eye out. Now this video is all about you learning from my experiences, and I hope you got something out of that. And I really would like you, if you can, to share it with other people, because we don't need to be going out and buying all these different sprays that are full of chemicals. We can make our own. It's very cheap to do, and why wouldn't we do it? So please share it. I've got lots of other things on the channel, and I'll link you that other spray that I've done as well. I'll put that on the playlist for you, so you can have a look at that at the end of the video. But share it. I've got all kinds of things going on here at the moment, and if you want to see what I get up to, by all means join us on the channel. And I welcome anything. If you've got any other ideas on how we can make different forms of these kinds of sprays, then please let me know. Let us all know. Let's share the information. But for now, have a great day. I'm going to enjoy the sunshine. I've got 2 hours of watering ahead of me because I need to keep my temperatures down. And I'll catch up with you very soon. See you around.